one of the things we learned over the years is that while we solve the challenge, like companies that are rolling out a platform like Salesforce or rolling out CPQ or, just dealing with like bad adoption or bad data or, onboarding hundreds of agents every week and need better training because, Salesforce is such a big part of how they run their company. We truly are a perfect solution for them. Like we can sell to that buyer. The challenge though is that oftentimes no one really gets fired for not having Salesforce documentation or training. And so companies buy the solution because we are a really good solution, but it still requires companies to actually be good at documenting and training. Like we're really at the end of the day, more than anything, a delivery mechanism. Like we've done a lot to integrate to Salesforce, to track changes to your system. Like we've done as much as we can to make that process as simple and automated as possible. You still need someone manning that. And the challenge is early on, we were selling to whoever would buy us. And so it was like IT teams and Salesforce teams. And over time, we've learned that really that's not the ideal buyer. We really need to sell to someone in enablement or training whose like job is to write enablement or marketing and write content so that we can make sure that the content's in the system and stays fresh. So we still go to Salesforce because we have so many of our customers where like that is one of their primary use cases and it's a great time to have engagement. But honestly, next year we're thinking about, do we do a booth or do we do events around Salesforce, right? We still want to take advantage of like, it's a time where so many of our customers are in the same place at the same time, but we want to kind of rethink like, how might we be more intentional about bringing our community together in a way that might not be a booth at Dreamforce?
Right. Let's talk about that. It's changed. As you said, it's changed over the years. I interviewed another CEO and they said to me, it was a really interesting conversation. They said, at my first company, I was aiming for the largest addressable market and largest ICP. And at my second company, we segmented until it hurt. Like basically we got down, as narrow as possible. Like when you think about that spectrum, where do you fall on that spectrum? Maybe where were you in the beginning? Where are you now?
I'd say we're in the middle. This year we've gotten a lot better. We've gotten a lot better on like who are the right personas to be really in the conversation behind the solution and like where are the use cases where we, are really successful. And also like, where's their budget right now? Because the reality is that answer has naturally shifted as the market shifted as well, right? Like in 2020, 2021, where you had different levels of the organization much lower down that had discretionary budget to buy their own tools. I think at the time we thought for better. Now I think for worse, for what it's worth. You didn't have to go as high up in the organization. And, when it came to like your bio personas, we definitely weren't as intentional. Now much more intentional around who needs to be in the room. For us, we need to have enablement or marketing enablement. And I put kind of training L&D under the broader enablement bucket and ideally RevOps in the room as well. But at minimum enablement, ideally marketing too and RevOps. Because at the end of the day, like knowledge enablement, it's such a cross-functional process. And if we want to be the solution that like as a rep, I just want to be able to go about my day-to-day. And ideally, if you have Spekit, if I just get off a call and I'm reviewing my Gong transcript, boom, here's the enablement you might want to review. Here's the content you might want to share with your customer. If I'm my email, my customer asks me a question, boom, here's the answer. Boom, here's the content you want to send, right? If you're navigating Salesforce, oh crap, what do I need to do here? Oh, boom, here's what you need to do. Let me guide you, right? So that's really been the promise of Spekit. Now, the challenge is that content, because of the market today, right? Because the market has kind of bifurcated this problem to 4 arbitrary categories, which I think is ridiculous. Like, oh, if it's sales and customer facing content, it's in a CMS. If it's internal knowledge on your process and policies, it's in a KMS, like a Confluence or a Notion. If it's content on how you need to learn how to sell, it's in your LMS. And each of those intentionally sold to different personas. And so now you've got content in all these different places. For us, if we're trying to say you don't need 4 or 5 different potential solutions, that's actually part of the problem of content decay and content access and discovery and usage and all the pains you're having. Instead, you need one solution that streamlines all of that and really focuses on the delivery in a way that's personalized and in the moment for your reps. We need to have all those people in the room. Or we can approach it in a modular way and from a land and expand, which we've done a little bit, like, hey, just start here and then like expand to other use cases. But so that I'd say we're experimenting the most. Now, in terms of company size, and I'd say that's where we've gotten much more narrow. Early on, it was like, you have a problem around documentation and training, we're a solution, buy us, right? And we really didn't pay much attention to that. Now, depending on our different use cases, so for example, call centers is actually a use case that we stumbled into that has still to this day our highest adoption rate amongst users, the most sophisticated champions, because like call centers are so metrics driven that like if you can't prove the ROI of what you're doing, it ain't gonna matter. And so when you look at the customers that have used this for that use case, whether it's Southwest Airlines call center, whether it's Equifax, is like they've been able to like very clearly demonstrate that like the before and after in a minimum 20% increases on productivity, time of call, et cetera. So call centers are great for us because, you know, there's much clearer ROI, very structured. The problem is that we haven't focused on that outbound because that market is so crowded and so saturated and there's so much noise with AI. We've decided like that is a natural expansion path for us. But even though we might in the future decide to go outbound on that, we've intentionally not chosen to go outbound ICP on that use case and the kinds of customers that would be really good fits there. That is something that we might reevaluate in the future. Where we have focused on outbound is really what I would consider two ICPs. So when we think about enablement, what we've learned the hard way is like you need to be a big enough company that you really have the pain of enablement. Early on, we sold to customers that were too small, right? They had like, 30, 40 employees and like they're just so messy and unstructured that they have the pain, but they don't really have someone that's going to be able to like manage it and be effective. And so we really start minimum at that like 100, 150 range and then go upwards to that like 500 or so. And for that, we want to be the first in platform because we've seen when we're first in, we tend to scale really well with companies and they realize like, wait, we actually don't feel the pain that we feel of needing to buy an LMS and needing to buy all this other stuff. They've already got an LMS. They've already got a CMS. Now you're doing the rip and replace. And like, while in some ways it's actually quite easy for us on the CMS side because most customers are just not happy with the user experience and admin and usage and costs of their existing CMS, right? Oftentimes those two are connected. And so it's more challenging.